Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, Chicago Tribune columnist John Kass. And
the lovely John.
My Fair Lady, John Kass. Here's the question I pose to you, Mr. Kass. Can Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner win re-election?
Can Rauner be saved?
And if so, how does that come to pass? And we'll take your calls in response to that question as well. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. 64636-DA, turnkey.pro text line. He's in the midst of a multi-million-dollar ad blitz. Is that a good start?
I'd say I'd leave the flannel shirt that looks like you just took it out of the Orvis box and put that away and wear a flannel shirt like guys wear when they're wearing flannel shirts. That's the first one.
You don't like
There's a certain ring of – I think that Rauner's problem goes beyond the flannel shirt, though.
Oh, you think the flannel shirt won't be able to solve it then? It's bigger than a flannel shirt.
No, and dropping the gerund, as we say, talking, I'm walking, I'm doing, I'm hanging, all that. No, it's serious pathology in the Rauner camp. He was given bad advice early on.
What bad advice?
He did not engage. When he was running for election, and I was writing columns about him and telling voters of Illinois, here's a guy who's going to be the bull in the china shop, I had the sense that he was going to do battle. And one way to do battle, especially in real terms, there's a fellow named Joe Berrios, the Cook County Democratic Party boss, but he's really a toady for boss Mike Madigan. Berrios had I think he couldn't win his own aldermanic election in the 31st ward. And I wrote about it, and I even talked to the governor. I said, look, if you don't try to take Berrios out, given Madigan's deals with, his private practice, which reduces
property tax appeals.
Property taxes, and Berrios is the assessor, and all sorts of. If you don't take him out, Madigan needs him. If you don't take him out or try to take him out, you won't be seen as a serious person by Democrats, of course, and also by Republicans as well. And I think that there were a group of people around Governor Rauner that didn't want to engage, that wanted to sort of finesse their way through, kind of like that leadership we got from Mark Kirk that served him so well. Not, and I think it's been disastrous for him, and I hope he can change it. He's got to. I think what he should do is sit down and talk to Dan Proft, because you've said this stuff. I've said this stuff. He's got to do something to actually engage and not engage with Susana Mendoza. For God's sake, he's the governor. She's the Mike Madigan puppet controller. You don't get on that level. You go to fight. You go to and fight to win. But I don't see it. I think it's the group around him. I do. I think they've badly served him, and I think he might be able to change it. What do you think?
Well, I think
Harris, am I a heretic?
No, I don't know. You're not. I think if he were in this room listening to you and what you think he needs to do, he would say things like, I agree with this and I agree with that. And then you'd leave the room and you think, okay, well, we got some agreement on some course corrections, and so I can't wait to see those course corrections. And then you won't see those course corrections.
I don't know about that now. I think he's smart. Look, he's a smart money guy. He's not a politician.
Well, I'm saying that up until this point.
Right. I think that there's going to be changes, but I don't know. I mean, just my gut feeling. I have no inside information on that, but I think there's got to be. If not, then it's just going to be it'll be him, Rauner versus a rich guy, Pritzker,
Spalding or Diamond Joe Quimby,
or the guy who's going to get all the media, because I'd say almost every political media in this town will suck up to the Kennedys. So it'll be Joe Kennedy and John and
the Chicago Press Corps is just an appendage of the Chicago Democrat Party.
I wouldn't say appendage, but I think that they
handmaiden.
I think that they see things in terms of process, and process is a democratic thing.
They don't. They're clearly uninterested in outcomes because the idea
If the outcome has been 50 years of Democratic rule, look what you have.
and 90 years in the
90
city,
years in the city.
and but it's certainly a half century we're
Right.
coming upon when you talk about Madigan and Cullerton and control of state government, even with compliant Republicans bearing some culpability as well. So you think if he changes course and stops with what I would describe, here's the thing about his commercials that are running right now. I've said this. That's not inauthentically him. He is not a suit and tie guy.
No.
He is an outdoorsman.
Yeah.
He had a Montana ranch before he ran for governor.
Before he brought his pet mayor, Rahm Emanuel, out there.
Well,
now look what happened.
That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem is not understanding who your friends are and who they're not.
Right.
That's one of his problems. But in terms of what he presents with the tool time set, that actually is kind of him.
Yeah, sure.
The problem is it's so kitschy, it comes across as inauthentic.
Exactly.
Even though it is generally authentic. And here's the other thing, which I think you were getting to. This kind of like, aw shucks, I'm fighting the good fight down here and, doing so optimistically. I don't think that commercial, and I understand this is just the opening salvo in an 18-month, $100 million campaign, but I don't think it conveys the sense of urgency and anxiety that people feel in the state.
No.
And I think he needs to get back on the side of the skirmish side of Illinois families rather than...
The ones who are leaving.
Well, right, and rather than kind of be in this construct that Madigan wants him in as just another politician fighting an abstract battle over this idea called structural reform with other politicians. He needs to be here on this side of the skirmish line with Illinois families that are leaving or looking to leave or trying to leave or afraid they're going to have to leave, saying, I am going to run, I'm going to lead us into battle. I need you to revolt with me because I'm staying and I want you to stay. And here's how close we are if we can get to the other side of this political ruling class that you see in the distance on the battlefield.
Correct.
And we're going to take the fight to them, but I can't do it without you.
Well, and also he can't do it without an army. And
right.
Our last guest, Victor Davis Hanson, one of his great books, 1989, The Soul of Battle, he talks in part of it about General Sherman, right? Lincoln had problems with his generals. Here comes Sherman. He marches through the South, laying waste, right? Because it was a war. That's the deal. And if you have people around you, Governor Rauner, who are just mamby-pambying around because they're looking for their next gig, which is what they're doing. I don't know these people. I haven't talked to them. I introduced Bruce Rauner to Illinois. I have not had any conversations with his political people.
Yeah, well,
what does that tell you?
That's a good example.
I don't expect people to kiss my ring, but that's the deal.
Let me just say it for you. That is a good example of a communication and marketing team that is in absentia, and the governor's in absentia as a result. Now, ultimately, that's his fault.
Yeah, well, they're badly. I think they're misserving him. Like that commercial. My commercial would be: you take that doctor, the screaming doctor, Dr. Dow. You take his voice. And you have a Mike Madigan character beating the hell out of someone, a taxpayer, in a sack with a stick, and then you dump him out, and the guy runs to Tennessee. That's what's happening.
Look, I know some of the people around Rauner. I think it's a mixed bag. I think he has some good people around him, and I think he has some people around him that have served him badly, as you've said. But he's allowed it to happen. And ultimately, if he cannot make personnel changes or course corrections, then he'll find himself November of 2018 where he is today, which is upside down.
But that's where the Democrats want him. And what you're going to have is what? Two rich guys who think they're going to be able to handle Madigan? And Pritzker, Pritzker's guys, Rahm's guys are all with Pritzker now. Your buddy, Peter Mark Giangreco, whatever his name is.
Yeah, same difference.
They're all with. Rahm is with Pritzker. I'd say the Dailies and Madigan is going to be with Kennedy. Who's with the taxpayers?
Right.
Who's with the taxpayers?
There's the market opportunity. But he has to understand that the reelection goes through Eastern DuPage County and North Lake County and suburban and exurban communities. It doesn't go through Glencoe.
And it goes through the 31st Ward, where I would send General Sherman there and take out Joe Barrios, who I happen to like. He's a decent guy, but that's politics.
but it's middle to upper middle income families that are getting blitzed from every
Yes.
side. That is the army that he needs to assemble if he wants to win re-election. It is not, whatever he
It's
gets
not.
from the North Shore is gravy, but it doesn't go through Highland Park and Glencoe and Kenilworth and Wilmette. It
If
just
you're
doesn't.
asking rich moderates who want to protect status quo to be your friends, they're not the ones you need when you're going to war. You need the same people that Trump got,
He-
the sheet metal workers on Archer and
Absolutely.
Harlem.
Absolutely.
Those are the guys you need.
Absolutely. So he needs to stoke the revolt and incorporate the Trump supporters, even though he wants to, provide some distance between himself and Trump to be independent. I understand that to a large extent.
Well,
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that's absent. Just forget Kennedy and Pritzker and Biss and
I can.
the
This
gag.
is a phony.
Well, I know he is, but my point is, say, we could talk about what's lacking from those guys all day long,
Right.
but what's really lacking from Rauner, I mean, going back to John Wooden, the kind of
The
great,
coach?
one of the great strategists of all time that has application for a lot of things outside of sports. If we do what we're supposed to do, it doesn't matter what they do. If Rauner does what he is supposed to do, it doesn't matter what Kennedy, Pritzker at all do. But he hasn't figured out what it is he's supposed to do. He is trying to minimize risk. He's trying, as a good word you said, he's trying to finesse his way back to the governor's mansion. There is no finessing in these times.
You will be. You did read where you're going to be next week. Where at the Lincoln Day dinner? Where is it?
In Palatine on Wednesday night. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how he is. Is there a point where he changes? And how will we know, Dan? How will we know?
Well, you'll know because he'll start sounding more like we're describing than what we're seeing at present on television. Not to mention his presence north of I-80 for most of the last 2 years. The fact that he was still the governor of Illinois and Cook and the Collars was a rumor. He needs to establish a continuing presence here and not just talk at people and to stake out positions, bullet points on a screen or in a mail piece.
He's not a politician. They set him up to play that game, and he followed them, and they screwed him, and they'll end up with a gig somewhere else. That's what they're going to go for.
But here's what he needs to do. He needs to engage and have an 18-month dialogue with the families that he needs in his fold.
Yes.
Making a case, explaining what's happening, arming people with information that they can turn around and use within their circles of influence. That's how you build and maintain an army and successfully lead them into battle.
You know what? And why I'm concerned about it, politically, personally, is not for Bruce Rauner's sake. He's a multi-gajillionaire. All those guys are going to be fine. It's the middle class in this state that are being squeezed. And you did a whole series of stuff on property tax. Right? Well, when he got in, when he was in the first year, that's the time to go to war. That's the time to pull a Patco on SEIU. That's the time to say, hey, I can find other people who can, take care of old people. I don't need you guys. Bye. He could have done a lot of that, and he didn't. Because those people didn't want him to fight.
Mike in Geneva, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
I just want to say you guys are killing it this morning. I am so pleased with what I'm hearing, really. But you come to Rauner, and it's like you say, he has to almost shock us again. It's been all this time, and you had so much hope, and nothing's happening. He has to have a commercial where he's sitting with a family. He's talking about property taxes, and they're going, everything's great, we love where we're at, and then you zoom out, and they've moved. They're in Wisconsin. They're in Indiana. And this is what our future is, and he has to take advantage right now. He's just sitting back. I don't understand it.
Thanks for the call, Mike. Jim in Rochelle.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that most of those middle-class voters are union members. Just as a word of the wise, and in-home service workers, putting people out of business, putting companies out of business that take care of the aging and the elderly and the sick and the poor. That's still on Rauner's plate. You have an uphill battle.
Well, thanks for the call, Jim. I mean, I agree with respect to the trade unions and even some public sector union rank and file. I agree those should be Rauner voters, but he's got to make a case. I mean, in terms of
he
social,
didn't in the beginning. He had them all enveloped with the public workers.
That's right.
And I'm not against them either.
That's true.
They're going to get. I'm worried that they're going to end up with nothing at the end of this.
And oh, by the way, before Rauner assumed office as governor, we were 51st out of 50 behind even the District of Columbia in terms of providing services to the developmentally disabled. So for those that are latecomers to social service providers and just listening to what you're hearing now and the Democrats pretending to be champions, all that time and all that money that's been taxed and borrowed and spent, and we're 51st out of 50 with Democrat control of this state before Rauner for 15 years, all three branches. And what did we get in the social service provision space? That's the kind of argument he needs to make. He needs to provide people with the ammo, the intellectual ammo. Ralph and Rantoul.
Yeah, good morning. Rauner's going to lose because he can't fight or doesn't fight. I've heard him speak before. He's an okay guy. And as far as the Dems on the left, what the people out there need to understand, hey, all you Democrat voters, is they don't care about you. In fact, they're talking to you. They're talking about you as which plant you're going to be sent to for which flavor of Soylent Green. You're just their food.
Yes. Thanks for the call, Ralph. Alan in Rockford.
You know, it's the classic good versus evil, and I think John makes a point with the fact that Bruce Rauner's time has come and gone. You know, it's Johnny come lately fighting Duke Nukem down there in Springfield, and Mike Madigan is not swayed by moral, just arguments that make sense.
No.
That time over time, and John, I would say, as far as your lack of conversation with the governor, reach out to him. Insist that he has a conversation with you. Put the onus on yourself.
I don't think,
Thanks for the call, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. I didn't say that it's over for Rauner. My question is, just to be clear on everybody, because I know now all the Rauner suck-ups that led him into this crappy place that he's in are listening now, and they're going to tweet each other or whatever. They'll go on Capital Facts and do it anonymously like they always do. But I'd suggest that he can turn it around. He can, but he's got to have generals. And the outfit when the outfit doesn't have generals, they can't do anything. Same with politics. You need generals that will march to the sea like General Sherman, and you cannot do it by accommodating Mike Madigan.
I agree. I think it's still salvageable.
Yes.
But I think the window is not the next 18 months or the next year or the next 6 months. I think he's on a 90-day, 120-day window to start moving back from the precipice if he wants to get home in 18. So that requires those course corrections we're talking about, if those are the proper ones, but in our opinions they obviously are. That requires they be implemented tout suite so that you can start to see the effects as people engage with the conversation that Rauner could potentially have.